It's the Rangers Journal now.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Rangers Journal on this Tuesday, the 7th of October. It is a happier week this week, I think, for all Rangers fans after the news from the weekend of Russell Martin's departure from the club. And of course, that brings up many new questions, or we could call them old questions, because sadly they are questions we've had to go around and around over the last every sort of 18 months or so, but we will cover them again anyway. The guys talked about, obviously, a lot of the reaction to the news on the show yesterday, but we'll touch on it very quickly before we get into tonight's comments. As I welcome the guys who are joining me tonight. First off, John. John, welcome to the show this evening. And what are your sort of thoughts on the most recent news with Russell leaving?
Evening, gents. Thanks for having me. Glad it's done. Should have happened after Bruges. Should have definitely happened after Hearts. Glad we finally got there. I think this league is still there to be won. I do not think we're out of this. I don't think the two teams at the top are that good to really stretch ahead of us at this point. I think we can get back into this with the right appointment next. So we've done it early enough. Glad it's happened. Let's kick on and see what happens next.
Absolutely. And also joining us again, one of our new reporters, Alan. Welcome to the show tonight. Alan, how are you feeling after the news of Russell's departure?
Yeah, probably just echoing really John's sentiments. It's probably about time, really, it happened. Bruges was probably the final straw for me. Speaking to people that I go to the games with and things like that, I was probably one of the last ones to kind of turn as such, but I think it's only been a matter of time. It was a kind of mixed bag, really, when you obviously the result came in on Sunday, and then you're kind of thinking, then the results after, you're thinking, surely now is the time for it. But just glad it's done now, and hopefully the fact that the Americans have stepped up quite quickly with their statement, I quite like their statement, and hopefully it's going to be a quick appointment, but the right appointment, as John says as well. I thoroughly believe that this league is still there. I don't think the other team across the city are sitting in great shakes at the moment. I think they can be got at. I think the teams already this season have shown that they can be got at, not to mention the fact that they played probably, as we know now, one of the worst teams in Rangers history this season and couldn't beat us. So I think if we get the right appointment, then why not? Why not be able to go for it? I really think that.
Absolutely. And luckily, we do have a little bit of breathing room to make that appointment with the international break there. But as you say, I think it'd be good if we can get someone in as quick as possible. So obviously, with the departure of the manager, it brings up, as I say, a lot of sort of new old questions. With the big one obviously being who comes in next, what do we want from the next manager, and all that kind of thing. But what we're going to have a wee look at tonight is the sort of other side of that coin, which is the players. Obviously, we brought in a lot of players with the turnover in the squad when Russell Martin came in, players that were bought presumably to fit the system he wanted to play. And now we're going to have a new manager who's going to have to come in and deal with that set of players. They've obviously underperformed given where we are in the table. They've done okay at times in Europe, but in the group stages have thus far failed to get any points on the board. So we're going to sort of talk about the players that have come in, mostly some players that were here before, and sort of just discuss whether we do think there's more to come from them. Can another manager get more out of these players than what they've shown so far? Or do we think we have brought in duds that are just not going to be any good? We've asked each of the guys to sort of pick out two players. We'll have we look at the ones that they picked out, and have we discussion around them. Do get in the comments if you've got any comments on the guys we're discussing, then pop them in. We'll bring them up as we go. And also, if it doesn't look like we're touching on a player that you think has more potential than we've seen, then pop them in the comments and we'll try and touch on them at the end of the conversation as well before we sign off tonight. So thanks for everyone who is already in the comments and joining us this evening. If you've not already, then do hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, as well. It does great things for the channel, and really appreciate all the support that you can give us. We're going to start off with one of John's choices for tonight. He's got two that I think dovetail quite nicely together. And the first one is one of the players who has been around a bit longer than Russell Martin, which is Nicholas Raskin. So, John, what's your kind of general thoughts? Why did you pick Raskin, and how much more do you think we can get out of him under another manager?
Raskin wasn't actually one of mine, so I better just make sure I'm not taking this off at Alan here.
It was Raskin was actually one of mine.
I've got them the wrong way around. Apologies. Alan, sorry.
Aye, no problem. Raskin I picked because I think like, if we're being truthful, in my opinion anyway, I think Raskin, the start of his Rangers career was a bit of a slow burn. I don't think he's hit the heights that everybody seems to think that he's hit, especially early on in his career. I think when you look at even the stage when Clement first came in, he wasn't always first name in the team sheet and went through a wee while taking his time getting into the team. And I think you're probably looking at it more the latter stages of Clement's period, and then Ferguson came in, and the change in Raskin I think has been incredible. Like he's turned into, if you like, modern day midfielder, box to box. He's brought goals to his game. He's brought assists to his game. That near post header that we've seen so many times from Aribo, he's became master of that from such a wee guy. I hate to mention his name, but he reminds me a wee bit of Stevie Naismith with the leap that he's got. He's really good in the air for such a small person. I think the improvement that we've seen under him last season under Ferguson, I think was really massive. And like I say, the fact that he's added goals to it, I think the fact that he's learning from a top class midfielder in Barry Ferguson certainly helped him with that. And right now, I'll put my colours to the mast. I'm right all aboard the Steven Gerrard train if it happens. So I'm thinking of this as the option that if Steven Gerrard comes in, possibly one of the best midfielders the past 25 years in any continent. His ability was never be questioned. And I think if Raskin is then learning under him, I think he can reach even bigger heights. The fact he's now a full Belgian international, playing and starting games with the likes of Kevin De Bruyne, things like that. And I just think back to the stage when Gerrard came in and the improvement that we've seen under players like Ryan Jack, for example. Those periods Ryan Jack was outstanding and was one of the first names in the team sheet from learning from somebody like Steven Gerrard, and probably you're talking the likes of Gary McAllister that wasn't a bad midfielder as well, that was there at the time. And if you look at Raskin, I think he can be there to be right in the heart of our midfield for another few years to come if we get somebody like Gerrard in. I can't see Raskin wanting to leave as quickly as what you would think. And I think the fact that he's seen out Martin and all that kind of fallout and controversy, I think that shows that Raskin isn't in a rush to really leave anywhere. He could have went at the end of the transfer window with the way it was playing out for him, but he's obviously chose to stick it out. Maybe he knew that he'll be here longer than Martin, and that's why. But I think Raskin could be a key player for us under, like I say, a much better manager to look to utilise his skills. And the fact that he's now added goals to his game, I think he could improve even more than what he's shown so far.
Absolutely, a lot of good points there, John. If I'll bring you in as well, Raskin's been one of our better players this season, although that's not necessarily a high bar to have reached. We've obviously seen a lot from him. He was very impressive last year, and a lot of people, talked about him in realms of being a potential captain for the club, and a player that we can build the team around. Do you still see him in that mold?
Yeah, I think he's got to take a massive step up in his performances this season. I don't think he's been anywhere near it thus far, and it's not like he's not had the opportunity to play. We've obviously had the issues in there, but he's only really missed those Celtic game, the Hearts game, when he was totally bombed out. I want to see a lot more from him. I think Alan's point's really good in terms of last season, Ferguson coming in and that jump up. Spoke about this a few weeks ago in one of the pods we were doing about the type of coaches we have. You saw it with Bassey, with Gio when he came in. He had a left back that came in. He was coached and he get the extra out of him. Ferguson's getting out of him. So the next manager, there's a lot of potential there to really get out of Raskin. Get him playing really well. He's got this thing now. He's been through some hardship at the start of the season, knowing that he's not just going to get that automatic pick. He knows next manager comes in, he can't step out of line. He can't have any nonsense going on again for his own benefit as much as anything. So I'm hoping that we can see him really kick on, find that form in the last few months of last season, get that, and maybe a step beyond that as well, because he will be key. He's the first name in the team sheet if he's in that form.
Absolutely, I think we can get a lot out of Nicholas Raskin if under the right management. So hopefully we can see that with the new manager coming in. Big shout out there to Martin for gifting 5 Rangers Journal memberships. Thank you, Martin. That's hugely appreciated. I'm sure the guys who receive those will also be dead happy to get them. You can become a member of the channel if that's something that interests you for 99 pence per month. We do put out occasional members only videos, and you also get a special little members badge that sort of changes the longer that you're a member as well. So if that's something that you're interested in, do visit our channel and you can have a look at it. We've got a question there as well. What's the latest on the manager front, Gordon? The only sort of, I think, main headline that's kind of confirmed is that Dyche has been ruled out as a potential new manager. Obviously, he was linked, I think, largely due to the Thelwell link. But he's been ruled out of the position right now. Lots of rumours surrounding Steven Gerrard, which I don't think is a big surprise. He was on Rio Ferdinand's show today. When that was recorded, I'm not 100% sure. But he did talk about coming back into management and picking the right project and the right challenge and all that kind of thing. So that obviously swirled up things, but nothing confirmed as yet. There are rumours, but as I say, nothing more concrete at the moment. Okay, so on to Alan's second one, and I hope this is Alan's second one that I've written it down properly, which was Joe Rothwell. Alan Rothwell, I think I said when you'd sort of suggested him, was a good pick beside Raskin, because the two of them have kind of been involved in conversations together as to where we should play them in midfield, who should be the 6, who should be the 8. So I kind of just thought, what's your thoughts on that in addition to Rothwell himself and how much more we can get out of him?
Well, I think, I don't know for certainty, but I'm assuming when Rothwell's came at first, he's maybe been carrying a wee bit of a knock. He didn't look fit, and he certainly struggled in his first few games. I think you'd be kidding yourself on not to think otherwise. But when you looked at him at Leeds and things like that, he was very dynamic. We've seen it briefly when he came on, I think, was it the Hearts game, and he came on as a substitute, and that 20-minute spell looked as if he was kind of bringing us a wee bit into the game and stuff, and then picked up that injury, just as Rangers' luck would have it. I think there is a player in there. I think he's came with a wee bit of a reputation for being a player like that, and he's not. I think I would see him more suited to the number 6 role than Raskin, purely just because I think maybe age, but I think Raskin's maybe got more legs than him. But Rothwell is he's a very good passer of the ball, and I think in more recent games you've started seeing him getting the ball and trying to get the ball forward and things like that. And I think him being in the number 6, just as in that anchor position and allowing the other midfielders round about him, whether it be a Raskin, whether it be even a Lyle Cameron, that's kind of, I thought, started his Rangers career quite well. If he's got legs about him, I think we would benefit a wee bit from Rothwell. And kind of like what I said with Raskin under, for example, your Gerrard, Rothwell being a young English midfielder, he might have started his career with Man United, but I've got no doubts watching England, Steven Gerrard would probably been a type of manager that he would have looked up to. If it is someone like Gerrard coming in, I would think he commands the respect right away from young boys like Rothwell that will see is learning for that, and that gives you an extra step. If you've got a manager in there that you would think, do you know what, I respect the hell out of him, I would give him that extra mile for him. And I think Rothwell, there's still a lot more to come for Rothwell, I think. And I think recently, even though it's been more appearances from the bench, I think there's more to come from him. Granted, he was disappointing on Sunday against Falkirk, but I mean, who wasn't really disappointing against Falkirk? No, so I think you'd be kind of a better team, better structure. I think we would get more for Rothwell in that number 6 role with legs round about him.
Absolutely. I think you made a good point about recent performances. I think he's come on a couple of times and looked really dynamic and sort of really driven with the ball, which is, I think, more of what we were expecting to see. Unfortunately, obviously, the earlier performances didn't quite live up to that. Although I think he showed signs, a couple of good passes and a couple of decent hits in terms of distance shots. I think he's hit the post and hit the crossbar at various times as well. John, have you got any particular thoughts about Joe Rothwell? Obviously, he came in. He was, I think I'm right in saying, probably the most experienced player that we brought in the summer. If not, then certainly close to it. He's obviously won promotion down south with Leeds, and was an excellent performer. All things taken into consideration. Have you been surprised at how sort of poor he's been?
Yes, but I think in fairness to him, I don't think he's been played in the right position. I think we all said for the start of the season the midfield just didn't look right. I get, Alan's playing again, he's a good passer. I think that's why Martin tried to play him that bit deeper, take the ball off the back 4 and have his passing ability as being the first one and not Raskin taking that. But it just totally nullified Joe Rothwell as a player. And then I think what you've seen is he's got his fitness up a bit after that first international break. He seemed to get back. Hearts game looked more dynamic, totally and utterly seemed a bit more pressing forward, trying to run and beat people. So I think there is a lot more there. I think he's getting him in the right position to suit his style of play and have him comfortable playing in the team. If it is going to be Gerrard that comes in, again, 2 midfielders we've looked at to begin with, they should hopefully start to see their game kick on.
Absolutely. Let's hope so. Got a couple of other questions here. Am I on the Gerrard train? I'm not against Gerrard coming back. I'm not as 100% on it as some, but I wouldn't be unhappy with it. So I'll say that. I do think there's players in our squad that fit Gerrard potentially, in the way he played with us before. So I would be interested to see what he would do, but we'll see. RFC 72, would Gerrard have coached Asgard in the Liverpool Academy? I don't think so. As far as I'm aware, Asgard was with Liverpool sort of 2010 to 2014, 2016, that kind of time. And I think, as far as I remember, Gerrard was still actually playing at that point. So I don't think he would have been. We've got a new member. Shout out to BigAl.69, who's become a member on YouTube. Thank you so much for joining us, Big Al. And as I say, anyone else wants to become a member, you can join at our YouTube page, just 99 pence per month if you want to do that. So welcome to you, Big Al. And a massive shout out to Darren P for the £5 donation. A huge thanks there. Everything helps for pushing the channel forward. That money will go towards paying for things like Y-Scout, which is super expensive, but gives us lots of great data that we can work with and present to you guys when we're talking about the players. So Darren's saying, do you think Thelwell took inspiration from the Navy SEALs? They found Bin Laden in his house. He's done the same thing with the head of recruitment search. Lol. Maybe he did, Dan. Who knows? We'll see if he comes out in some fatigues at some point when he's on his off days. But who knows? But thank you very much for your £5 donation. Okay, so moving on then to John's choices, or at least I hope they're John's choices. First one I've got here is Nasser Giga. Giga obviously came in, looked pretty promising to begin with. Folk were sort of talking about him quite positively, and then he just sort of dropped off a cliff. You see, kind of, he played 5 games. He started all 5 of them, and then he just sort of, as I say, hasn't really played since. What do you think happened there, John? Is anything in particular, or is it just a young player having a dip?
I think for me, the main thing is he's been asked to play in a way that just doesn't suit him. I think he's decent on the ball, but I think the inviting the pressure onto the back four to try and break through the lines, he's struggled with it, and I don't think he's been comfortable with it, and I don't think he's been asked to play. I think Nasajiga is a good cover defender. He's the guy who would sit a little bit deeper, go and let John Suter go and win the ball, and if anything comes in the back, he's got the pace of recovery that he can go and be that good defender, because he can. I've seen it in the first few games. Lots of good tackling, lots of good positioning sense, but we were so wide open that it was just causing so much pressure on the back four that he was just getting caught out with it. And he just didn't look comfortable to me. I think he's got the pace. I think he's got the raw physical attributes that can be good in this game. Part of my reason is I don't think he's suited to it, but I think where we are now, there's a real opportunity to go to a back three. We've got a proper left-sided centre back. We've got Suter in there, and having Nasajiga play that middle kind of spare centre half, and I think we would see the best of him in that type of setup. I think the players we've got there can work to that. So my hope is that, and it might not happen, but my hope is that new manager comes in, we have a far better way that we can play, a far more structured team, far more structured defence, and actually start to see the best of him as a player, because I think there is a really good player there.
Yeah, so he did show some early promise, and hopefully we can get back to that. I think the high line, Alan, has been an issue for the entire defence, for all our defenders. I think I put a tweet out in response to someone, I think it was this morning, suggesting that we could have Gio, Amo, Moore, and Perini as our back four right now, and we'd still have lost half the goals that we'd lost with the line that we'd been playing. So I am hesitant to put the blame too much entirely at the player store for that one. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I think you need to kind of look at the manager and the way that he's obviously been trying to get them to play. I think it's clear as day that there's not many in the team that were very comfortable with the way Martin was trying to get us to play, and I think our defence was just a key part of that. I think you could see how uncomfortable Suter was playing in the other side of the defence, and I think that actually possibly affected Giga's performance. Giga, I was quite impressed with him when he first came in, and he played quite well. I actually might be in the minority, but I actually thought he had not a bad Old Firm game as well. Yes, when the ball's at his feet, he's not the best footballing defender. But I thought after the mistake in the European game with the confusion we had in Butland, I thought going into the Old Firm game, it could easily have swallowed him up. And I actually thought he dealt with it all right and just looked to clear his lines and just defend first and worry about it later. And I think that's what our defenders need to get back to doing. I think I'd like to see Giga with Cornelius for a wee run, just with Cornelius being a natural left-sided defender. But I'm in complete agreement, and I think I actually said it last week as well with John, that I think we are crying out to try a back three. I think we're very suited to a back three, and if we can get the right balance with it, I think we could see more for Giga. The fact that Wolves are bottom for 10 million, he's still young. There's obviously something there. He was young, playing in the Champions League and things like that. The guy has ability. I don't think we should rule him out just yet.
I definitely agree with that sentiment. I think we can be quick sometimes to rule out players, and I think we're maybe quick to forget that he is only 22, which is older than some, but still young overall. He has, as you pointed out, he's played a lot in Europe prior to this, and played pretty solidly before. So hopefully we can get a bit more out of him when the new manager comes in. Got a question here from Gordon. I'll put to the two of you. Start with yourself, John. While we're talking about defenders, would you like to see Enciala make a reappearance when the new manager comes in? Obviously, he was someone I think most people were kind of excited to see potentially progress this season, but under Russell Martin, he was pretty much bombed out the squad pretty quick.
Yeah, I'd like to see him get another chance. I know it didn't go great for him, on a couple of occasions, but again, as a young player starting out his kind of career, we have to be able to give these players time. With all our young players, if it's Bailey Rice, Finlay Curtis, guys who've went before him in terms of Leon King, Alex Lowry, etc., we need to give them the time to make some mistakes, to grow into the game, and not just give them like 5 appearances and then go, not good enough, just get them out. I don't think that's right. It's not how we're going to be able to tell long term if they're good enough. So, yep, hopefully see NCL again and definitely see more of Finlay Curtis.
Absolutely. What about yourself, Alan?
Yeah, I think NCL should be given a bit of a chance. I think I'm not saying for certain that he should be coming in and starting games, but I definitely think he shouldn't have been bombed out the way he was. I think, yes, he might be foreign, but he's a young boy. He's came over here. He's came from the Milan setup. Once again, like I said about Njiga, the boy's obviously got ability. I thought he actually played quite well in some games. I know at Rugby Park in Ferguson's first game, he had a bit of a shaky spell and was taken off quite early, maybe to try and protect him and what have you. But I don't, I don't see how we can look to grow and bring in young players if they're just quickly bombed out. And I think Martin was far too quick to bomb out in Ciara. I think he could well be involved and offer something, especially in that left hand side position. I think he was good with the ball at his feet. Scored a few goals, if I remember right, as well, going forward. He's a bit of a threat, and I think the boy, like, he might end up not making the grade and might have to move on, but at his age, I think he could be certainly look to be more involved anyway, especially when you've got games like, for example, when we had like Alloa in the cup. I think that was the perfect chance for Martin to look at boys like Fernandez, Inciala, things like that. But he seemed to make his mind up very quickly about Inciala, and I never really understood why, because I thought ultimately when he did play last year, and if Martin was watching as many games as he says he did, then I don't think he would have seen the boy letting himself down much.
Absolutely. Got a couple, I think, one or two comments here sort of suggesting the same thing. So I've got Cassie's one I've picked out here. Do we know Martin was the one who cast NCL to the side? Are we sure it wasn't Thelwell because he was a Copman signing? Well, first and foremost, I wouldn't expect Thelwell to be making decisions like that for any player. That's the manager's job. But I do think it was Martin. He did make specific comments about Enciala at the beginning of the season during the training. I think during the training camps where he was asked about him, and he said that they'd had sort of discussions, and he basically said that Enciala needed to be playing first team football. So the kind of inference was that he felt that Enciala needed to be playing for his development, which is, I think, is true. And the inference was that he wasn't going to be giving him that opportunity, and thus he should look elsewhere to get it. So it does seem like it was Martin's decision on the basis that clearly, seemingly, Martin either didn't fancy him full stop or just didn't think he was going to get in based on the players that they were looking to bring in. So as I say, it would seem it was a Martin signing. If Thelwell was the type of guy who was going to cast players aside simply because they weren't his players, then that would make him an even worse appointment than he potentially has been, because that would just be an ego thing, and we don't have time nor room for that kind of nonsense.
Yeah, I'd say we have bigger problems than what we think. If Cotton was if Thelwell was looking to doing that for Cotton players.
Absolutely. Okay, John, your second guy that you highlighted, one of the players I was most excited about, Oliver Antman, our right winger, came in with a lot of hype. He'd obviously had a really strong season prior to coming to Rangers in the Eredivisie, a high number of assists. He looked quick, he looked dynamic, and he made a big splash with the Rangers faithful with his first game against Pleasant, where he was, as I say, looked to be all the things that we'd been promised. But he's kind of been a little bit in and out there. You can see sort of there are 6 matches. He's only started 3. So, he's kind of starting, not starting on that right side. What's been your thoughts on him so far?
totally and utterly misused. Excuse me, we bought a flying winger who was more akin to Neil McCann, who wanted to get on the outside of people, get the byline and cut the ball back, get crosses in, and we've asked him to cut inside, and he just isn't built for that. Simple as that. The player I was most excited about coming in over the summer, because I knew of him, I'd seen clips of him, I'd heard about him. If I'm correct, 24 goal involvements in 39 games last season for Go Ahead Eagles, 7 goals, 17 assists. That's phenomenal numbers, but very much a player who gets on the outside, uses his speed, and has got a very good delivery. We've seen that in the Pilsen game for Gassama's goal, and I think what we've seen at Livingston was somebody as well who's just very aware of what's going on about him, not flinging a ball back in, cushioning a ball back to Tav for that goal, which was another brilliant assist. I think he's suffered in terms of coming into this team and being coached by Russell Martin and being coached into a way of playing that just doesn't suit him. And I will nail my colours to the mast. I'm on the Kevin Muscat mania bus in terms of the next manager. So a manager who's going to come in with a kind of 4-3-3 front foot style, who will look to wingers. If that's the road we go down, I think Oliver Antman could be the star of this team. I really do, because I think he's got the attributes there to do it. He needs the right manager with the right system to get the best out of him. And I think if we can get the best out of Oliver Antman, I think we will see lots of goals for Bojan Majowski and hopefully Yusuf Trabiti as well. So I think unlocking him can unlock a lot of good things for us. So yeah, I think the new Gaffer, new lease of life, I think he to me is the one who could benefit the most for getting rid of Russell Martin and getting somebody new in the door.
Absolutely. Alan, I think, a lot of people in the comments have been touching on it as well. For someone that was known, if you knew him before, for being a winger that liked to get down the side and put crosses in, I think we very much have seen that he has been seemingly coached to be cutting in frequently, and he does do that frequently. But that was just ultimately is leading to him running into defenses, running into packed central areas when there was space outside of him. He doesn't seem to be doing that for overlapping, because Tavernier doesn't really overlap these days. Generally doesn't overlap anyway, because he himself tends to invert when he moves forwards. But what's your thoughts been on that, man? Is he just poorly utilised, or is there more to
it? Poorly utilised, and I think there could be other reasons as well. I think I was very excited when he came. When you read the stats and you see clips of him, things like that, I was very excited when he came in. His debut against Pilsen, he was electric. And funnily enough, is that maybe before he had a training session with Russell Martin, and then that's been coached out him to play another way. You see him with balls over the top, this pace of him, getting to the byline, crossing it in for the goal, and what have you. That's what I thought we would be getting all the time. And since then, as John's been saying, he seems to be coached to have to come inside all the time, when you can see that he's clearly not comfortable doing that. I wouldn't be against Kevin Muscat coming in either. And what I'd say is also, if it was Gerrard, if you think back to the days when we had Candace and Kent, you're looking at Gassama and Ant-Man as the perfect foil for that type of play as well. We need to really utilise players when we've got guys like this. His assist record for Go Ahead Eagles, which isn't the top tier of Dutch teams, but to come out with the assists that he's had is outstanding, really, for that kind of team that he's playing for. And I really thought we'd be looking at a guy running, using his pace, getting by people, whipping balls in, and what have you, for the likes of Majowski, Chermiti, that would thrive in that kind of service. And we've just not seen it, because he is getting coached to cut inside all the time. My only worry is a wee bit that, especially domestically, is I think one of Ant-Man's strength is his pace for balls over the top and running onto it. We don't play against a lot of teams domestically that will come out and allow us to do that. In Europe, I think we could use Ant-Man a hell of a lot better. My only worry would be going forward in some games domestically when Ant-Man's at the moment you see him, he's getting his ball to his feet with his back to goal. That's no benefit to him at all. He's wanting the ball in front of him to run on, use his pace, and that would be my only wee kind of concern with Ant Man, that when we are playing teams that play this low block and they've got every man behind the ball, I don't know if Ant Man is the right fit for that. But horses for courses, I think it could still benefit us when you look at teams, especially when you're playing maybe the likes of Celtic, Hearts, and things like that. Teams that will come out more, and in Europe, we certainly could be utilising them a hell of a lot better than what we've been doing.
Absolutely. So hopefully we can get more out of him and see some of that form from the Eredivisie under whoever the new manager may be. Okay, our next one. So we get two that I picked out. So the first one I think is one a lot of people have touched on recently, which is Thelo Asgard. Again, another young player, 23, coming to play that sort of attacking midfield position. He's played a lot of the games that we've had thus far, but and has been in that attacking mid position on the number 10, if you like to call it that. Although I feel like he's not really been played in a way that maximizes his attacking abilities. A lot of games, we've had some games he's been used as the kind of the player that's marking someone out of the match. For example, in the Old Firm, he was kind of attached to McGregor for a lot of it. And if you look at his heat maps in certain games, he seems to have a tendency to drop back quite a bit, drop back to the left side as well. And some of that I think is reflected in some of these stats. If you see like chances created, only 0.29 chances created per 90, which puts him in the 5th percentile. So 95% of players in the SPFL in his position are creating more chances than he is, which is obviously a pretty poor outline. If you look at his, I should maybe explain, actually, I've not labelled it very well here. The main stats on the left-hand side are SPFL stats, whereas the ones in the wee diagram account for broader comparisons with players in other leagues and things. And you can see the chance creation there is slightly higher at 11%, but that still means, the best part of 90% of players across leagues in Europe in his position are creating more chances than he is. And for your attacking midfielder, your player in that kind of central position, who you would want to be, a creative force, someone who's going to get assists, who's going to get goals. I think that's obviously something we really would like to see more of. Things like his dribbling, again, he's pretty low. He's not got his touches in the opposition box, again, only 15th percentile. So again, the majority of players are getting more touches in the opposition box for players that are in his position. So to me, this is a player that to me looks a bit stifled when we've had evidence that he can do better. So obviously that game for his national team, where he got 4 goals, albeit not against the highest of grade opponents, but you have to be there to score them nonetheless. So I definitely think that there's more to come from him. He is a talented player. A lot of people obviously sort of touching the fact he got relegated prior to come to us. He had only been signed in the January to try and save, I forget now, was it Luton he came from? To save Luton from relegation. They were already in a pretty bad place at that point, and he was kind of signed to try and help save them, but wasn't able to do so. So as I say, I do think there's a talented player there, but one I think needs to be let loose a little bit. What's your thoughts on Asgard, John?
See, I'm struggling to figure out what his position is. Where we get the best out of him. I think that's the problem I've had so far. He's definitely playing far too deep. I know it was Moldova, but you don't go and score 4 goals for Norway in a game that you're a second half sub in, and then against who was it, Hearts, but he was basically, his kind of heat map was almost like a left back. It just doesn't. Something's not right there. So I think we've not obviously found the right place to put him. There's clearly ability there. I think he has a very language style in terms of how he plays that some people might take as being a bit lazy and a bit, kind of off the ball and things like that. So you just need to work around getting the most out of him and saying, right, that's how he plays. Here's how we get the best out of him. I think getting him more central and a bit further forward would be good. I don't like the whole let's put a player on to mark another team's player out of a game. I think that's just a waste of time. Get these guys playing to their strength. Don't stifle them and let them do what we can do. But I think finding the right position for them is going to be key to getting the best out of him and not having him sitting as deep as he is just now.
Absolutely. Alan, this is a player that is playing alongside people like Haaland and Odegaard for his national team. He's among other really talented players. Oscar Bob from Man City as well. He wouldn't be getting the opportunity to play in that team if he didn't have something about him. Norway, they're not maybe one of the top nations, but they're certainly in that kind of, I would say, sort of second or upper third tier, a decent nation with decent players. How do you think we can get the best out of him?
I think it's a very good question. I always thought when he came in, I was quite excited when he came in, and I was expecting him to be like a kind of number 10, if you like, creating shots for distance, things like that, a bit of a goal threat. As you say, we see him for Norway. He's obviously got ability. The fact that he's scoring goals like that, it might be, as you say, it's not against a top tier nation, but to be in that company, to come off the bench and score 4 goals, the boy's obviously a finisher. Is it again how Martin has been playing them? Like, I've seen games where he's very strong in the ball. He's got a good physique. He's holding off players and things like that. But I'm just really confused with Asgard because I don't know where he fits. I don't see him. He's not a player for me that would play wide. I don't think he's got the pace for that. I think I don't see him running away from many players much, but he does in wee flashes have some nice touches and things. And I'm just really at a loss as to where he fits in the structure that we are playing with now. He doesn't like. He did do a good job against Callum McGregor, but to me, he's came in Rangers to be one of our better players, one of our most threatening players. I don't want one of our most threatening players sitting trying to nullify Callum McGregor. I want them to worry about our player and what he's going to do when he's got the ball. And as much as he did a good job, similar to what Bajrami did a few times last season as well, and you never seen the best of Bajrami in those games, I just think I'm at a loss with Asgard. He frustrates the hell out of me when I'm watching the game because he just seems to, games to me just seem to pass him by. And I don't know where he really fits in the structure of how we've been playing. And if Gerrard, if I keep going back to Gerrard, right, but if it's Gerrard that is coming in, he was predominantly playing with the 3-man midfield with the 2 wide men again, the same way we've been playing past few years. I don't think Asgard has got the pace or the running to be one of those 3 in the midfield. So I just don't really see where he's fitting in now.
Yep, I think that's to say finding the right place and right place is certainly part of the puzzle. So hopefully we can see something in that regard from Tello moving forward. Got a couple super chats in here, so I'm going to just get to them before we move on to our last player there. So a big shout out to Martin, who's put both of these in, 2 £5 super chats. So we'll cover both of them. Huge thank you to Martin for putting these in. I think they kind of follow on from each other. So he's put in, and Cherney was a bargain and better than we've got. Much better value than a £10 million spent on the striker who's not scored in years. Gasma left and Cherney right. What a pair. Would you guys have spent the money we have on wingers or spent the money on Cherney, who was a bargain and gave more than some of the new guys in a game? I think it's a really good question, Martin. Initially, was it Wolfsburg, were asking for somewhere in the region of 8 to 9 million for Tierney at the start of the window. And I do think, while personally I probably would have paid that myself, I can understand why Rangers might have thought that was a bit on the high end. He did, however, not go until the very end of the window, and it was for less. So I do think we could probably have come in at the end of the window and got something for him. And obviously, with the stats that he put in last season, he would have been a welcome addition. Someone who you could have relied on, having already played in the league, played in Europe, and all that. I don't know if I would necessarily say I would buy him instead of Chermiti, but I would probably still have wanted to bring in Gasma and Ant-Man, so that you've got options. Like you say, well, you could have had Gasma and Tierney both playing. Ant-Man I would have still quite happily have signed, though. You need, obviously, players for backup and things like that as well. So I would probably still have brought Ant-Man in. The big question, and I'll start with you, John, on it. Obviously, just your general thoughts on the topics Martin's brought up there. But the other question I think I would put to the two of you is would Tierney have performed as well at last season under Russell Martin?
I think first thing, Vasa Tierney's getting €60,000 a week in Turkey. The transfer fee's one thing, but his salary is bonkers. It was the same with Connor Cody. Connor Cody was on £70,000 a week at Leicester. The transfer fees are one part of it, but it's the overall package. Wrexham will be paying him stupid money to stay
They
down
come
there.
for the love. They come for the love of Rangers.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think, well, Johnny would be great, but I think after the fact and given the numbers involved, they were never going to happen. I think what we've done, though, is we've replaced the style of player in Tierney with Gassama. We have went and got an inverted winger who can cut inside, shoot and score goals. If I look back to this time last year, did Vasa Tierney have 5-6 goals at this point, and the number of assists that Gassama has? I don't know. I need to look at it, but it's not on the right side, it's on the left side this season. So you've got that style, you've replaced that style of player. I don't think you could have two inverted wingers, though. I don't think you'd have Gassama on the left and Vasa Tierney on the right. You need something different on either side. So, like, somebody like Ant-Man is the perfect foil. You have a winger then who wants to go on the outside. You give yourself options for overlapping fullbacks, underlapping fullbacks, that type of thing. So, the other part of that is where I've spent it instead of Chermiti. I would not have spent the money on Chermiti. The player all summer that we were linked with, I would have loved, was Dortmund, who has, funnily enough, scored 2 and 2 for New England out in America. And if MD series goals that he scored the last 2 weeks, they are crackers, absolutely brilliant goals. So we missed that boat. So that's where my money would have went instead of Chermiti. Probably not on the wings, would have been on a striker who could really score the goals for us. Would Tierney be doing it in a Russell Martin team? Not a chance. Not a chance. I don't think anybody would. And I think that's why we're doing this pod that sits and says, actually, all these players who haven't looked up to speed yet could become very good for us with a different manager.
Absolutely. What about yourself, Alan? What's your thoughts on that? Anything to add to what John said? I think a lot of good points there.
Yeah, no, I agree probably with most of them. I mean, I wouldn't have said no to Ant-Man coming in either, as you said, but I think if the deal could have been done for Tierney, then I would have brought him in. You knew what you were getting. You knew the league, and you knew what he was capable of. But I would have, as you said, I would have probably still brought in Ant-Man as well. You need options. If you're wanting to compete in everything that we're playing for, there's going to be times where you're going to need these options and different players. Would have spent as the other point that was brought up there about spending the money on Chermiti. That's just a total other question. I wouldn't have been doing that. The minute that signing was announced, I never understood it. To sign a player for 8 to 10 million when we play one man up front, and you just brought Miovski in, it just made absolutely no sense to me at all, and I don't think it ever will. And looking at how he might come good, but looking at his few performances so far, I don't see us getting the £8 million back on him. Put it that way.
Indeed, that'll be a high bar to hit. We need to hope he starts banging goals in soon if we're going to try and turn that one around, but we shall see. Okay, so we've got one more player to hit on, which was my last choice, which is let's move him out of the way. There we go. Which is Jaden Megoma. Guys, if we haven't touched on anyone that you think is underperforming that will get better under new manager, then put them in the comments. As I say, we'll touch on any ones that you mentioned that we haven't before we finish off. Jaden Megoma is a 19-year-old left back. He's currently our only fully fledged left back in the main team. He's pretty much played solidly since he came in. In fact, I was actually going to double check, so I was interested to see if because I think he's probably got some of the highest minutes in the squad this season. Let's have a quick look here. Oh, actually, no, he doesn't. He's a bit further down. Okay. He's come in, as I say, 19-year-old young lad. He's in on loan. He's kind of been thrown straight. Well, he was literally thrown straight in against Club Bruges, our toughest opponent by a considerable distance this season. Or sorry, no, was it the round before that? Actually, he was thrown in. Either way, thrown into European tournaments straight away. And as I say, he's pretty much played solidly since. He's had a couple of clangers here and there. He was the one that was a bit slow to see the to carry the run for the goal against Sturm Graz from the free kick, although that was largely in part due to the high line as well. But on the whole, I think he's done reasonably well, especially when we consider the fact that he is only 19. He's not played a huge amount of football prior to coming to Rangers. And as I say, he's been thrown in to become our first choice and only left back. I kind of feel it's a little bit reminiscent of Leon King when he got his quote-unquote big break when he was thrown in straight into European competition in a defence that wasn't the best. So, as I say, I think he's done reasonably well. And I think he's a talented young player. He's still raw. He's still got, as I say, stuff to learn because he still is making the occasional mistake. But I do think there's something there. And depending on the price, I think he could potentially be someone that might be a good value purchase because I don't think he'd be especially expensive as well, depending on how he goes for the rest of the season. John, what's your thoughts on the young lads?
I've been impressed. I like what I see. I don't think I didn't blame him at all for the goal last week. I thought just the victim of this ridiculous high line and a bit of confusion in terms of where he was meant to be and what he was meant to be doing. But I think we've seen signs of a really good partnership with him and Gassama. Him overlapping, Gassama cutting in. I think there's really good signs there of a good partnership growing. I think he could probably be doing with a more experienced left back there, so they could be coming in and out of the team. I know, obviously, Cornelius played there on Sunday and did okay, but I would much rather Cornelius brought in as a left-sided centre-back. It's playing left-sided centre-back, and we kind of stick to that. So I think we'll just need to be careful in terms of managing his minutes and giving him the right amount of time. But I've not seen any major issues with him thus far. I do like what I see. And yeah, I mean, if there's a deal to be done there in the summer, given everything we've seen so far, I'd be up for it.
So what about yourself, Alan? Have you got any thoughts on Megomar?
Yeah, I think he's came in and acquitted himself quite well, considering the fact that he came and he hadn't played a lot of first-team football at all. And like you said, thrown in a European game, yes, you could argue if you were being pernickety that you could say he has had a few mistakes in him. Like John, I don't really hold him solely responsible for the goal at Sturm Graz. I think it was an accumulation of errors. The fact Barron loses his man, the high line, and I think he was kind of made a bit of the scapegoat, getting taken off at half time for it. I think he was the easy change to make. But I think he's actually played quite well. I think he's very good and very underrated going forward. Defensively, hopefully that will come. But the modern day fullback now, it seems to be getting forward and worry about defence later. And I think he does look quite good, dependable going forward. But my only worry is with him being so young, there is going to be, and I'm not playing a lot of football, there is going to be a time where his form is going to dip. And my worry is with us not really having another option. Cornelius did okay at left back, but I don't want to. I would rather him be a starter as a left side centre back rather than getting used as a left back. My worry is when Homer takes a dip in form, is how is he going to handle maybe having to play every week to get through this with him being our only left back. I was shocked we never brought in another left back, even like you say, maybe a wee older left back, just to get a wee bit of experience and just to kind of feel the way push each other that he can come in and out. Because that would be my worry, is that when he does have the dip, how would he deal with it? Because there's not really anyone else there that would challenge him for him to take his place in the team. And as I say, I don't like. Cornelius did fine against Falkirk. They did fine when he got moved to left back against Bruges. But no, sorry, no Bruges. Some Graz. But I think long term, I would like to have seen someone else come in to challenge him. But the young boy's acquitted himself well since he's came in, and like you say, he didn't get time to settle either. He was just thrown right in, and yeah, I think he's handled himself quite well so far. And if there's a deal to be done next summer, I certainly wouldn't rule it out at the moment. Anyway,
Absolutely. While we've been chatting away there, Chaz has come in and gifted another 5 Rangers Journal memberships. So huge thank you, Chaz, for that. Everything helps the channel. And again, I'm sure all the guys that have received those will be really thankful for them. So big shout out to Chaz for donating those. Come from Andrew here. Don't agree with the comparison. Doug Leon King is a championship player at best, and Migoma is a baller. I wasn't so much meaning to compare the players in terms of quality, just the situation that they were in. Like, Leon King was thrown in to the team at a time where our defence was really shaky because we had a lot of injuries, and he had to just kind of front up, having not played much football before, and obviously just kind of do the best he could to get through that. And I feel that there's slight comparisons there with Migoma, who's come into a team with no left backs and therefore had to carry the candle of being our first choice left back at a time when our defence is not doing so well. So I'm more meant to compare just the scenarios, not necessarily the players and their situations. There was another comment I wanted to touch on, but it got buried among all the chat. There's loads of great chat going on in the comments, guys. Thank you for contributing. I have been noting down a few of your suggestions for players, so we will get to those in just a second. Here we go. It was this one here from Shona. I like Megama, but another pointless signing because we can't afford him. Back to the drawing board. I don't necessarily think that's the case. From what I can see, his valuation is somewhere between $500,000 to $2 million. So I don't think he's one of the unlike sort of Giga, who is, as I say, he's rated about 10 million and was kind of hotly tipped to potentially be getting into the Wolves team at some point in the future. I don't think Migoma's quite in that position. He's got a few players ahead of him as well, I think, in the pecking order. So I think he is a more realistic target, given his value. But that will partly depend on what his parent team think of his performances. Obviously, the better he does for us, maybe the less likely it is. But as I say, I certainly think in terms of value, anyway, we can certainly afford him. Particularly, I mean, we're spending 8 to 10 million on players on strikers that don't score goals. So I think we can maybe afford 3 or 4 on left backs that actually play decently. But we'll see. Okay, let's see. I see we've touched on a couple of players mentioned in the comments. One of the players mentioned by quite a few people, guys, I think no surprise, it was Finlay Curtis. A couple of people have mentioned him in the comments in terms of someone that we'll hopefully see more of. I don't see either of you disagreeing with that. Start with yourself, John. Do you hope we see a bit more of Curtis? And let me actually bring in Mikey Moore as well, because I think the two of them have kind of gotten embroiled in a comparison battle, shall we say. I think there's room for both to be able to play. We've got, we play upwards of 50 to 60 games in a season, assuming all goes well in all competitions. So I think there's plenty of room for both of them to play. But what's your kind of thoughts on primarily Curtis, but if you want to touch on Mikey Moore as well?
Definitely want to see a lot more of Curtis. There's plenty of minutes for them to all get a chance and all to contribute. And what we're seeing from Finlay Curtis is he can contribute. Yes, as an 18-year-old, his game has to improve. He has to the way he plays, his overall involvement in matches in terms of the experience and what he does in the games. He's got to learn. He's got to get better at that. But he's come on and scored goals. He's given you actual output and end product to that. That's invaluable. He could be. Sunday was a prime example. You're looking for a goal late on and you've got nothing. You don't have Finlay Curtis there. You've not even put him on the bench. So you've totally and utterly pushed him out of the picture. Why? He is somebody that we would all sit and say can finish. Might not be the best crosser of the ball, might not be the best dribbler with the ball, but if you give him a chance, you'd put your money on him putting it away. So in those positions, having him as a good option, you've got to be giving him game time, you've got to be getting him involved. I think the thing with Mikey Moore and why it is you've got two 18-year-olds competing for game time to make mistakes and learn the game. We own one of them and one of them isn't our player. Mikey Moore is just going to suffer from that point of view of, well, because you're not ours and because there's a hype, you're not allowed to make mistakes. When in actual fact, every 18-year-old isn't going to be great all the time. It's just we're not letting our own 18-year-old player make those mistakes and learn to grow for us in the long term. And that has to change. We need to give him the opportunity to play.
Absolutely. Alan, I think I've already seen a number of comments throughout the night on Moore. A lot of people want him sent back. Are we being overly harsh with him? Again, this is another young player, albeit he came in with a hype. And people are obviously holding it against him that Curtis isn't playing, which obviously is not his fault. Martin clearly liked him because he kept playing him regardless of his iffy form. I certainly think we can get more out of him because I did see him last season. I watched most of Tottenham's matches last year in the Europa League, and he did play well when he came on. So I definitely think there's more to come from him and that we can get use from him. But what's your thoughts on Mikey Moore and again Finlay Curtis as well?
I think Mikey Moore suffers from the fact that he's young and English, and you've got that hype machine down south that all of a sudden he's a world beater at 18, and I think that's what we've got to forget, that he came up here at 17 and he's just turned 18 and then been able to come into the team. And I think the fact that, as John says, that we've got one of our own sitting there in Finlay Curtis not getting the same opportunities that Mikey Moore's getting is getting the fans frustrated. Listen, I think Mikey Moore's obviously got a bit of talent. He's a highly rated, and maybe it is the way that he's getting played again with Martin. We keep saying this about everybody, but it might be the case. I don't believe the fact that we've signed 13 players and every one of them just aren't suitable. Like, there's got to be more to it, if you ask me. And I think there's hopefully more to come from Mikey Moore. I think he could be doing with coming out the team though a wee bit. I think it's a bit unfair, the pressure that he's getting to it, and you can hear it in the stands when you're at the game as well, that the pressure's on him right away. And like, I'm guilty of it myself sometimes at the games and stuff. We're not the most patient of fans in the world, and I think a lot of that is because we've seen wee flashes of Finlay Curtis and seen him coming on and getting the goals against Panathinaikos, the goal against St Mirren, and the goal against, was it Arlo in the cup as well. The minute that ball was played through to him, you'd have put your money on him finishing it. Just as John says, the boy is a finisher. And the fact that what I don't get is Russell Martin seemed to speak really highly of Finlay Curtis at the start of the season about his attitude and this willingness to run that he loves and everything. Like he seemed to speak really, really highly of him, and for some reason he's just been bombed out completely, and I don't know why. If you're chasing, like a lot of times we've been the past few weeks, and he's thrown on all attackers all over the place, basically just hoping something sticks, abandoning all his principles just to throw as many attacking players on. Having Finlay Curtis there is an option for him to get a goal, and because the boy can finish, and the fact that he's been bombed out, I think it's incredibly unfair, and I would love to see him be able to get more game time. The fact that he's a young boy, the fact that he's a Rangers fan, that's the chance to live in the dream and stuff. That's the boys you want to get behind, and you know that he'll run the extra yard, he'll go the extra mile for you because it's just in him naturally. And I'd like to see him get more of a chance. Mikey Moore, as I says, I think he could be doing with just coming out of the team and just taking a wee step back the now. A wee bit like I was saying about Mahoma. The fact that there's a dip in form the now, he's very young, trying to get him to play through it in this high pressured environment the now when it's not been going well. It's a lot to ask of the boy. And I think maybe he could be doing with maybe wee fresh years coming in, speaking to him, taking him aside. Maybe he's the type of boy who might need a wee arm on the shoulder and just to kind of encourage him a bit. But hopefully we see more of the two of them and they can kick on. Like I says, is it the English hype machine that's building him up to something? Also, I don't think the boy helped himself with coming out in one of his press conferences and saying that he wants to be one of the best players in the world. I get have the confidence, I get have the swagger that you need to be a professional footballer in that type of position and things, but saying that before you'd really kicked the ball for us, he'd kind of put a target in his own back, if you like, with a wee comment like that. And I think maybe he could have been taken aside and just said, listen, let's just take your time now, let's get help you with your development and things and see how we go for there.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's us. We're past the hour mark now. We've lots of great chat, lots of great comments in there. There's plenty of other players we could have touched on tonight. I saw Curry at one point mentioned Fernandez, who's someone we've not touched on. Obviously, he's sort of disappeared from view after having been purchased for $3.5 million. So certainly on a value perspective alone, I hope we see him reappear under whoever the new manager is. Shout out to the Gaffer Scotty, who's on holiday right now. He's clearly been on the drink because he's on Matondo Mania. So he's obviously relaxing this evening. So shout out to you, Gaffer. Well done on getting a bit of well-deserved rest. And a big thank you again to everyone in the comments, particularly Martin MC, Big Al, Darren P, who all, and Martin MC as well. And Chaz, for your gifted subs and your what they call it, the special page chats. Thank you guys for contributing, and a big thank you to everyone for your comments just in general. As I say, lots of great chat tonight, and lots of good comments and points of view. Last thing I'll finish on. Saw a couple of things in response to what I was saying about Magoma there. Suggesting he's worth 10 million. I can't find anything to suggest he's ever been valued at 10 million. He was bought for 5 million by Brentford. He's not done really much since. We did have a loan prior to this. Super chats, thank you, Andrew. That's the word I was going for. Oh, it's jumped too far. There we go. Super chats. That's what the word I was looking for, Andrew. Thank you. Yeah, Magoma. I can't find anything to say he's worth 10 million. 5 million is the best I can find. That's what he was bought for. And depending on how he goes, he could be worth that to us. We'll need to see. But hey ho. So it just leaves me to thank John and Alan for joining me tonight. John, any final comments you want to make before we go?
I can't wait to the point we're talking about how good these players actually are, not what they might become, but how good they actually are in the coming weeks and months under a new manager. Can't wait. And thanks for having us.
Well, thank you for being here. And yourself, Alan, any final comments?
Just looking forward to hopefully a new manager coming in, whoever it may be, Gerard, Muscat, whoever, and just a wee bit of excitement for going back to Ibrox again next Saturday, and hopefully the team then deliver with a new man in and we can kick on from there.
Absolutely, absolutely. And hopefully we won't have to wait too long to find out who that will be. And whoever it is, you will find out as soon as we are able on the Rangers Journal. I'm sure we'll probably go live regardless of whenever it is it's announced. So do keep yourselves subscribed, as I say, to the channel. Hit that notification bell and you will know exactly when we go live. As I say, I'm pretty certain that we will when the manager is announced, whenever that is, hopefully in the next week or so. We've got loads of great more content coming out. Tomorrow night we're going to be talking a little bit more about managers and sort of chatting a bit more in depth who some of the front runners that have come out. So again, as I say, get your subscription in if you're not already. We know there's loads of guys that watch on X in particular that may not be subscribed, so please do come and join us on YouTube and hit that subscribe button. Thanks for putting up with us this evening. Listen to our chat. We'll talk to you again soon, and just remember that every night is a Rangers Journal night. See ya.